Hey people, we got a convicted gun smuggler and a convicted drug smuggler getting out of prison tomorrow, and these will be our new heroes for the week. And it looks like the Border Patrol is being suicided. They must have some information on Clintons. And all the sleeper deeper sheep don't have a clue. And I found some gold here about the press who's spreading all this. And if the people knew how to read this chapter, they would be at their senator's office giving him the old at a schmally a serm all by. At a schmally, him there have committed a serm all. A serms is swears to a serm all by. At a schmally a serm all by is the ancient meaning to that. Was him there he committed which for treason by. This is going to give us a better idea of what the Babel means and a bunch of other words that they've twisted the meaning. This is said to be the parable of two eagles in a vine, but it's about the serpent and the goose. This here says serpent. It says son of man, but the son of man is who'd hide him's limbs. Who's hide him's limbs? The serpent. And it's in a riddle, pose a riddle. Who would hide? And that also says, the cud. The cow chooses cud. And so when you want to hide your cud, that means you don't want the Jews to know that you chew a cud. That means you don't want the Jews to eat you. You don't want nobody to know that you're a clean animal. And most of the time this muscle comes up, they'll say that's what it means, is muscle is power. Your leader's muscle, and the Muslims all come from the same. And they made two separate categories for these words. But it loses everything in translation. You don't see all these rhymes in the translations. They're in every line. And this eagle here, this is the answer. And the answer is a goose worldwide. All the people that were educated, in Latin, they called the goose an answer. And everybody who wanted to appear educated, they also called the goose the answer. And so this never means eagle. So believe it or not, the longest word in this paragraph is the easiest word to read. And it's going to give you a better idea of what, via means. That's where they get this bring, this via right here. And it means via by way of. And they're getting this I and I over here from this we, W-E. And then bring is via, we, by way of. And this him is coming from this you right here. And it's the same suffix they put on all the names to say that means of God, And this is what you. And so we, by way of what you. In believe. You could read this as is the Y-E-W-V, what you have. And believe, B-L-E-V-N, believe in. And we, by way of what you in believe in. Accept it. This is the word for the judge. Accept it, Yah. Y-A. Accept it, you too. And so this is a smally, a serm all by. That would be the French pronunciation. The T's are silent. It's so smally. But what it tells me, the mold pen was the astrology that they run the law by, in a serms, mal, from all was ramal by garbage. And that's the job of the press, that's what it says. And I will spread, P-R-S, and presto, these are words of magic here. En preste aliriste, en preste aliriste. And so, this I, this is what they're teasing in here. You see it, tie, and I will spread, and my net, the restai, and my snare, the tie. And this tie is hidden in here. But it is, it's the tie, and you, I will bring. And here it didn't fit, the tie and try, and then by again, back to me, me and I. But I believe, where they just left in Egypt, when you put an I on the end of a word, it's the same as doubling up the last letter. And I think it has two things. It either turns verbs into adjectives or nouns into verbs. I think I seen that on the British Museum channel last week. They put it up. But in Preste alla Riste, it sounds like something that a musician says when he throws a cape over his head and a smoke bomb and disappears. And when taps, that's when you die, taps, lights out. And in my snare, is be in mix wood tie. And preste alla riste, when taps in mix wood tie. We via what you in believe in incepted yetusum. Yetusum, those type. From all was er, from all by, from the mother of all, from all a was er, from all by. So there's a bunch of marks in here, and it says a bunch of other things. And that's even about what this chapter's talking about. It even says, to read it and go back and read it again. And this first word in here, this is where your word reveille comes from. Reveille. And the word of the Lord to me. And reveille means to wake up. And it's also, the R. And the R-I-E is a twist of reveal. It means twisted. R-I-E. The twist. The re and the V-E-A-L. The reveal. And then the I on the end to make, to make it a verb. The reveille, it means to wake up. Lammer. And so I was thinking this means, to exaggerate, but it looks more like, the L-A in louder, to holler. The tongue, and A is power, and more, meaning higher. Why they didn't reveal the reveille to wake up and holler. Why they didn't reveille lammer. Ben Haddam. This has been up in Adam. Reveille, reveille. That's what they hollered on the boat. Reveille, reveille. Wake up in Adam, And Ben Haddam has done been at it. Means you should have done been the work, Ben Adam, up in Adam. And Ben Adam who'd hide, to pose a riddle. But, this is the hidem slums of. Final L reason is the of. The hidem slums of all in it is role, his job. And so this riddle here, riddle comes from the same place your word, the British, come from. The same R-I-D is the same R-I-T. And it's talking about having to reach into the soul to answer this riddle. This is the Ka. So they just left Egypt, and this K means to give, and E's mean life. And not just Egypt, but it was the worldwide language, to give life. And if you read it with the dots, then it's a K-O-E, it means co. And so the Ka was just a part of your soul. It was a co-inhabitor of other parts of the soul. But this is the part that gave life. And so, this is a mort, a mort, a mort of Ka. And Emmer is that one that is, and Emmer, I Emmer. It's in a mort, it looks like, abort, a mort, and immortal, has a soul and a life. And when you're reading it with the upper markings, it tells you you're reading this 3 times. And the first time with the OA underneath it, and it lets you know that's what it's talking about. It's a more to, and then of, a more to of, a more to of Ammer, that one that what I am, a more to Ammer to a mort of soul Emmer. and then back the other way to remisk, SK, to remisk trauma, and had in you the answer. Invading. This always, every time you see this, pretty much every time, the last letter is going to be a V, go with this. And it's the vading, like invading, had in you, the soul that's invading. The one that's, invading is coming in, but the vader is the one that already lived there. The living in, the vading you, the answer. Having a reach inside of the soul, the soul that's in you, the vading you, the answer. And so these old riddles are a whole lot harder to figure out these days because, at the time this was written, it was well known that the Hebrew language was actually called the British language. And all these covenants you'll see in here, are made with him a covenant, and it's in writ. It means in legal writings. And at this time, people knew that Brit meant the language, and English were the people, and Brit was the language. And it's the language of the covenant. And who crit it of writ. And crit is to hide in secret writings, and made who crit it of writ. And you see this Brit changes up 3 different ways in here, and it's in writ. The wife matches up, and the one that he can break a covenant and still be delivered, that's Britain, Britun. And the Britain mallet, that's that's this old wooden mallet that the symbol of is cut in law. You have to have the hammer to cut it in the stone. When the mallet goes down, it's cut in law. And this one that can break the covenant and still be delivered, is him let. You see that's the word, is T's in here. This mullet. The mullet's also, a circumcised. And, the ones that's escaping, is him let who's. Him let who's all. And who, that final H-E, reading with this U. Who appear. And him letting who's all who appear in written mallet. I tell you, I've been reading, looking for the place that says I'm not supposed to repeat what I read, but it appears it's only if you took the oath, somebody taught you, and if you broke the oath. But all to wuzzer appear at in writ what to, in the writ what to, in the legal document what to, in took, be took, in took in the blame, BLYMWT, and took in blame what, and get the old moody moot. And so, they give a definition for all the words, and this is the base word for Babylon, before it had the E on there. But yeah, they say, he called it Babel because it, BLL is the word bull. And they say that means confusion, but this gives us a better definition of Babel, the way it comes up, It was in believe, and it's in the blame. What? It took the blame. And so, that's what they don't want you to know is the book is written in the British language, and somebody else is taking the blame, what? And they can't even read this. But, if you keep on studying it, from the alchemy, L-C-H-M-E, the alchemy. If you keep on studying, it'll be in frummelcum, in the alchemy, in the war, in frummelcum, in speaks, soulum, the self. You'll see this, this is the base word for self. It'll come up with a P following it other places. But it's, the solely, solely of self, the solely of in it, of in what. And the diff, this is, a wall to cut off persons, many. This is coming from a dipple, A dipple is another, a double, a dipple, a diffle crit, in hidden in the writings, in the crit, the meaning underneath, in critten, pursue, in pursue or in what. And so this would be a name for me, I am in the diffle critten pursuiter in what. Somebody who's looking for the other meaning. And buzz, all the leper in writ, when intended to. The D could be read as a T or a D. The intended to or intended to, his hand, and gave in his hand, and in fact gave in his hand when intended to. Your helper tending to you, handing you a wrench, and call all whose lay mullet. And call does divide out, and call all whose lay mullet. He shall escape, is the mullet, is the cropped foreskins, the ones with the cropped foreskins. And call all whose lay mullet. Everybody who hangs out a cropped pecker, call them out. And so thus, this is why nobody can read this anymore. None of the Jews can read this. They called them all out. All the British that could actually read this were called. And it comes up with this soul emmer. It'll flip it up several different ways in this chapter. And you see the inrit come up again here, in the Britty. And any M, a lil, the two A's become a I, a lility. That old sound that the Irish are famous for, the characteristic rising and falling of the voice when speaking, a gentle, pleasant accent, or a way to cover up when you're lying. And enium lilty has or biz of writ, as reaper, the R-E-P-I-R. See, that broke is changed. As reaper went to. And so this is spelled a little different this time. And it's, it's went, the wind. And to is the god of war. That's where your word Tuesday come from, Mars. And went to Brasso, and Brasso means shine. And so, oppresti holy, all of where stay. And I will spread over him my net, and oppressed all where stay. When tops in 'em exudity, we by way of what you in believe in, decepted to 'em. From all was from all by. And you see it in this word first spoken too, the Britty was the language. And he pursue who'd Adam give. Any you had Britty. Any you had the language. And then you see the ka emmer, and that means alive, I am a life emmer. Ka emmer, adding you who lift steel, who lift, a thief. And enium it's smart, one of the highest branches, mit, MT, with SMRT, with smart, any with smart. The ears hear me, enium it's smart ears hear me. And set out, and went I, when time rose in foot to the rock of top. A tender one will crop off, and rose in foot to rock of top. And stilty, and stilt, to raise something up high, topmost, highest branches, high. That's coming from this stilt here. Put it on stilts. And stilty, any all here give what lull. And somewhere in here where it says Brit, it says it's talking about The British, as in they just didn't writ, they would show up with a writ, with a contract, and say, the land you're living on is ours, and you'll pay us taxes. And it's talking about they done made a decision how they were going to divide up the world, and they all took territories. They would just show up with this paperwork saying, that you owe us taxes and you're living on our land. We're here to protect you, but we've never had any crime here before. See, we're doing an excellent job. But the mobsters only wanted 15%. But I believe I'm going to read some more in the next one. I wanted to show you this. This is in Exodus 15, and it's right after they cross the Red Sea, and then they stop on the other side to write this song about it. And then just after this song, it goes into saying, in his sight do and give ear to his commandments. But there was no commandments till 20. There was no talk of them. But what this says is the limits what to. And so this is voying what as who has in telemits what to. The telemits what to. When you get pulled over by one of these old backwoods sheriffs, they bring you to jail, that's what he's going to say to you. Voying or being what as who has in tell him is what to. It's not being though, it's voying, VOY, voying to see. And seeing what as who has and tell him it's what to. Being we the ones with the badge over here. In his sight do you give ear to his commandments. The people who wrote the Bible spoke Alabama redneck. But when people finally wake up, the answer's all right here. Say, thus says the Lord God. Pluck it out by the roots. Cut off and leave it to wither all of. And no power great or people many will be needed to pluck up it by its roots. And it's talking about the source, where your word sorcery comes from the sorcy. Alright, I'm going to cut this off here and I'll read some more into it next movie. Good day.